Leeway and Amara stood in the room, their eyes locked on Jan. The moment her gaze met his, a wave of terror rippled through her. His presence alone seemed to make her body tremble uncontrollably. She turned to Amara, silent pleading in her eyes, silently begging her to convince Leeway to release her, insisting that she had truly learned her lesson. Leeway stepped forward, his gaze icy and sharp, cutting through her like a blade. He asked if she had genuinely learned her lesson or if she was simply trying to toy with his mind. Leaning closer, his voice low and precise, he reminded her that she knew the consequences if she dared to challenge him. Yan's head shook violently, tears streaming freely down her cheeks, her voice trembling as she insisted that she had learned her lesson. She begged him for the antidote, claiming her body was weakening, that she could feel herself losing the fight, and that her time was running out. Leeway let out a short, controlled laugh, cold and measured. He told her it was good that she had learned her lesson, and that today was a lucky day, because he had decided to free her. Disbelief flashed across her eyes, but his icy stare remained unbroken, fixed on her. He told her there were rules she must obey, and that if she broke any of them, he would not show mercy. Yan nodded quickly, promising she would follow every rule. Leeway stepped closer, explaining that if he freed her, she would follow his instructions to the letter. She would tell her mother and the friends searching for her that she had taken some time away to reflect, and that would be the story she would stick to. She must not reveal anything she had seen or experienced in his secret room. He closed the distance between them further, adding one final condition. She would stay far away from him and Amara. She would never touch Amara or even look her way, and if she disobeyed, there would be consequences. Jan nodded again, pleading, her voice shaking, promising she would follow his instructions exactly, that all she wanted was to go home. Leeway's gaze bore into hers, searching for sincerity. He could see the fear and trauma etched into her eyes, the way his presence now made her shiver with a terror she could not hide. Slowly, deliberately, he untied her hands and feet. Relief washed over her in a trembling wave as she flexed her newly freed limbs. She looked at him, her voice barely a whisper, pleading for the antidote, claiming she could feel her body failing. Leeway remained calm, unyielding, and told her that he would not give her any antidote. Amara stepped forward, concern etched deeply across her face, asking what he meant, insisting that they could not allow her to die. Yan sobbed, her words ragged and desperate, promising to do anything, begging for the antidote, or else she would surely die. Leeway leaned in, eyes locked on hers, his voice steady and resolute as he revealed the truth. She had never been poisoned in the first place. Shock froze both Amara and Jan in place. Their eyes widened, disbelief and confusion etched across their faces as the weight of his words sank in. Yan's eyes locked on Leeway, filled with desperation and disbelief. She pleaded, her voice trembling as she told him that she could feel her body weakening, that she could feel the poison coursing through her bloodstream. She begged him not to do this, insisting that she knew she was wrong and that all she wanted was a second chance at life. Leeway held her gaze, unwavering, and told her that what she had been given was never poison. It was merely water mixed with salt and vinegar, nothing more. It was her mind that had convinced her she was poisoned, her own thoughts that had made her feel the toxin running through her veins. He leaned closer, his eyes darkening, and told her he would not stoop to the method she had used on Amara. All he wanted was to expose her mind to the cruelest and most unbearable torture, to make her truly believe she was poisoned and let her suffer alone without him ever laying a finger on her. Jan's head lifted slightly, disbelief written across her face. Amara stood frozen, unable to process what she had just heard, her mind reeling at how Leeway had orchestrated such a psychological trap. In that moment, she realized just how formidable he had become, how he had learned from Master Shen and was even surpassing him, mastering the art of mind games and manipulation. She remembered every time he had told her to trust him, and now she understood exactly why. He always knew what he was doing. Liwei took out his cell phone and dialed Ming's number. Ming answered immediately, and Liwei calmly told him he could come over and be reunited with the love of his life. Hanging up, he looked at Amara and told her it was time to go. He took her hand, and she gave Yan one last glance before walking away. Yan remained sitting there, alone, consumed by the realization of the mind games Liwei had played. She felt the weight of her own mind being used against her, tortured in the most excruciating way, and wondered if she would ever truly heal from it. Meanwhile, at the park, Momo and Kai sat together. Slowly, Momo released herself from his embrace, her eyes still glistening with tears. She thanked him quietly. Kai's gaze stayed on her, calm and steady, asking if she felt better. She nodded, and he smiled gently, telling her that sometimes crying was the best remedy for pain. Momo hesitated, then asked if he wasn't going to ask why she had been crying. Kai chuckled softly, saying it wasn't his place to ask, and that as long as she was feeling okay, that was enough. She studied him, realizing just how good and selfless he truly was. Breaking the silence, she asked him why he had ended up in the park alone, seeking to clear his mind. His expression darkened as he looked away, telling her that ever since his father's death, he had felt weighed down and needed space to think. Momo's mind drifted back to Liwei and Ming's conversation from earlier, the words she had overheard echoing in her head. Liwei had been the one responsible for Kai's father's death. Her heart sank for him, realizing what he had been kept in the dark about, how innocent he had been, a good person undeserving of such pain. Kai noticed her gaze lingering on him and asked if something was wrong. Momo took a deep breath, moving closer, and told him that she needed to say something that might hurt him deeply. His eyebrows furrowed as he looked at her, waiting, telling her to speak. Ming pulled up at Liwei's house and rushed straight to the door, ringing the bell with frantic urgency. The moment the door opened, he stepped inside without hesitation, his eyes locking onto Liwei as he asked where Yan was. Liwei told him to follow, and Ming immediately did. He froze mid-step the second he saw her, Yan sitting there, fragile and shaken. His eyes welled with tears. The moment Yan saw him, she stood and ran into his arms, holding him tightly as she cried, telling him she had been scared, that she thought she was going to die, that she thought she would never see him again. Ming held her just as tightly, telling her not to cry, telling her he was here now and he wasn't going to leave her again. He wiped her tears gently and asked if she was okay. Yan nodded, and Ming shrugged off his jacket, draping it over her shoulders before telling her he was taking her home and that everything was okay now. Yan nodded again, and while she stood behind him, Ming stepped toward Liwei and Amara. He kept his eyes on Liwei, cold, furious, burning. Before Liwei could speak, Ming's fist collided with his face, a sharp punch thrown without warning. Ming didn't wait for a reaction. He went back to Yan, took her hand, and walked her outside. Amara immediately turned to Liwei, asking if he was okay. She leaned in to look at his face more closely, but Liwei simply walked off toward the kitchen. He grabbed a bottle of whiskey, ready to pour himself a drink, but Amara snatched the bottle from his hand, telling him he couldn't just drink every time he was stressed, that some things were meant to be talked about and not drowned in alcohol. Liwei looked at her but said nothing. He walked out to the balcony and Amara followed. He pulled out a box of cigarettes, and before he could take one out, Amara grabbed the entire box from him and threw it over the balcony. She reminded him he had promised not to smoke again, that alcohol and cigarettes couldn't be his answer to everything. She moved closer, telling him she knew he was hurt because of the fight with Ming, and she knew how much he valued him. She told him not to worry, that Ming would come around, that it was normal for friends to fight. She looked at him softly, telling him he could always talk to her about these things. Liwei said nothing. Silence surrounded them. Amara, disappointed, told him she would give him space and turned to walk away. But Liwei caught her wrist and pulled her back, wrapping his arms around her tightly. Not a single word left his lips. He just held her. Amara eased into his embrace, her arms sliding around him, letting him cling to her as long as he needed. They stayed like that, silent and motionless on the balcony, her hoping that at least her presence, her warmth, could calm the weight pressing onto him. Meanwhile, at the park, Kai watched Momo, who had gone quiet, refusing to tell him what she had wanted to say. He pressed gently, but she stayed silent. She thought about how it wasn't her place to reveal the truth. Liwei had saved her life before, and she wasn't going to destroy his friendship with Kai. Letting out a small laugh, she told him she just wanted to thank him for helping her the other time, for helping her get Ming to confess. Her voice dipped, weaker, as she said it had been the happiest moment of her life when Ming finally told her how he felt, even though she had now discovered he had never felt that way at all. Kai watched her carefully, then leaned in, telling her not to cry over a guy when the world was full of billions of men and that her Mr. Right would come eventually. He told her to lift her chin, that breaking down didn't suit her. His phone beeped, and he checked it before telling her he needed to head home. He stood and asked if he should drop her off, but Momo shook her head, saying she needed to be alone for a while. Kai nodded, smiling gently, telling her to smile more, that crying didn't suit her. Then he walked away, leaving her sitting in the quiet of the park. The following day, Amara and Leeway pulled up to a spot in the city. Amara glanced at him and asked who the person was, the one who was supposed to help them take down May and James. Leeway smiled and told her it was Kai's mother. Curious, Amara pressed further, asking him why she was helping them. Leeway leaned in slightly and told her it was best she hear everything from Kai's mother herself. They both stepped out of the car and walked toward the woman seated and waiting for them. The moment she saw them, she smiled warmly and waved, her expression already carrying the satisfaction of someone who was ready, finally ready, to deal with May, even if it meant making her disappear from the face of the earth. Amara and Leeway walked up to Kai's mother at the table. Her eyes lingered on Amara, sharp and assessing, as if trying to read her mind. She finally spoke, asking if she was the girl being hunted by the devil called May for her heart. Amara nodded, her hands tightening slightly. Kai's mother reached out and grasped her hands firmly, telling her not to worry. Since they shared a common enemy, she promised, they would work together to make sure May was gone for good, never to return. Leaning closer, she asked if Amara was brave enough to walk into the lion's den and destroy the so-called lion once and for all. Before Amara could respond, Leeway's concern flashed across his eyes. He asked sharply what she meant by that, insisting they could not put Amara in danger. Kai's mother's gaze was calm, unshaken. She explained that to catch May in the act, they needed Amara to appear to have been captured by May and James. A hidden body camera would be placed on her to record everything, and the deception had to be flawless. Leeway's jaw tightened immediately. He disagreed, saying that if the plan involved risking Amara's life, they would rather postpone. He would find another way himself. Amara's eyes softened as she looked at him, calm but resolute. She told him she could handle it. May and James believed she had lost her memory. They would not suspect a thing. Leeway's worry deepened, his jaw tightening. He warned her that the plan was riskier than she thought, that there was a real chance of exposure, and she could be killed. He could not let that happen. Amara's hands met his, and Kai's mother's gaze drifted to them, noticing the unspoken chemistry between them. Amara's voice was steady as she reassured him again, telling him it was okay. She was confident nothing would go wrong with him there. This was the only chance to finally end May and James once and for all, she said, and if it meant using herself as bait, she would do it. Leeway said nothing. His eyes were stormy, hesitation simmering beneath the surface. Kai's mother's gaze met his, firm and unwavering, telling him she trusted everything would go according to plan. Slowly he nodded, agreeing. He added that they could use the funeral the following day as the perfect opportunity. May would be there, and they would need to make sure she approached Amara. Kai's mother smiled and extended her hand to shake Liwei's, sealing their agreement. Amara joined in, her grip firm. The three of them sat together, anticipation hanging heavy in the air, knowing tomorrow would finally bring a chance to eliminate May and James. The next day, the graveyard was hushed, solemn, the sky heavy with the weight of mourning. Everyone watched as the coffin descended into the earth, the silence stretching between them. May stood beside James, her eyes locked on Amara with calculating intensity. James leaned close, whispering doubtfully that he didn't think Amara had truly lost her memory. May's reply was confident, chilling. Jan had assured her the poison she used on Amara was strong, effective, irreversible. Amara's eyes flicked to Kai's mother, who offered a subtle, reassuring nod. Taking a deep breath, she steeled herself and walked toward the bathrooms, knowing May would follow. Her pulse raced, her heart hammering in her chest. Every step had to be perfect, every expression convincing. May had to believe she had truly lost her memory. The bathroom door swung open. May stepped inside, the air thick with tension. Their eyes locked. May advanced slowly, deliberate, every movement radiating danger. Amara's chest tightened. She could feel the gravity of the moment, the lie she had to sell, the trap she had to make real. Every heartbeat seemed to echo in the small, confined space.